What's up, world? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome back. I know that was a lot for us to unpack in terms of like from Ukraine to gas to now we're at Will Smith and the infamous slap. And I couldn't think of a more of a person to really talk to us about the narrative of what is at play with Will Smith and Chris Rock. As I mentioned this morning on air with Good Morning America, because I just mentioned to you a few moments ago, I believe that slap represented more than just a joke. I believe that was a metaphor for feeling in the moment that Black women feel so unprotected during this time period. But I've also been very clear on my positioning that was an assault on Chris Rock, and that was wrong. And Will Smith should have never handled it from that perspective. But I wanted to bring in my friend, who is a celebrity hairdresser, to the stars. I'm going to run her bio down in a minute. I wanted to get her perspective on Black beauty, Black identity. At the core of the joke was alopecia. So I want to talk to her about her experience and working with clients as they're progressing with that unfortunate space that they have to deal with. But also, too, I want to talk about the Crown Act, I just mentioned a few moments ago, in terms of legislation that was passed in order for Black women to wear their hair in its natural state and to do what they want. So without further ado, I want to bring in my dear friend. I know I don't need a hairdresser because I'm bald, but she's a dear friend of mine, Porsche, the Hairstylist Waldo. But before we do that, I want to run to just some of her client list. I mean, her clients go from Mary J. Blige, Tyra Banks, Chanel Iman, Faith Evans, Fantasia, Monique, Layla Ali, Lisa Leslie, Layla Anthony, and the former secretary, Condoleezza Rice. What a range of clients. Portia, welcome. What's happening, my friend?
Yeah, I've been around a long time. How you doing, Mike? So good to see you.
Good. 15 years in the game of Ebony Studio Designs here in New York City. And you know, my mother, she still wants her hair done by you when she comes to New York City. She's coming soon, by the way. But she says she can't wait in 2 weeks, actually.
Oh, well, let me know. I'm available.
Yeah. She's been dying. Ever since I met you, I told her all about you, so she's been dying. And so congratulations for you being a Black woman, having a salon in New York City. That is almost an impossible feat. So cheers to you for that. Of course, let's just get into it. What is just your hot take as we think about this slap that was heard across the world? What is your thoughts on how the way Will Smith handled that?
I'm not happy at all. I actually have a client who's in King Richard. Demi, she plays Serena in the movie, and I think that it was hurtful basically to everyone involved, the cast, all of the people who this is their first time in such a big moment, and they were all slighted because of this. There will be so many things have been not even talked about because of this. This has overshadowed so many people's dreams, so many things for so many people that I'm just not big on disrespect in general. I don't think that there's a place for that anywhere, but definitely not on stage in front of so many people watching. So I was very, very upset by the whole experience. I didn't even expect to be this upset about it.
Essentially, you expect to be this upset. You haven't expected to be this upset by it. I was amazed at how long I was sitting with it immediately after, even at the governor's ball. I was still upset and people were still talking about it. I think it's something that hasn't left us. What do you say to this narrative, though, about what we're seeing now on social media? You know, all my friends were talking about it. I haven't had a dinner, a brunch, a coffee, or a drink this week where this conversation has not come up amongst my friends in terms of the divisiveness that's going on in the Black community. Some Black community members are Team Will Smith and Team Jada, and some Black people are, Team Chris Rock, and then some people are just Team, I don't like neither one of them, but I would never tolerate an assault that would take place. Where do you fall with this? And then what is your thoughts on why this has been such a divisive topic within our culture?
So I think that, and I say this all the time, it's funny you would even ask me this question, because I think there needs to be a standardization across the board like we used to have back in the days when we were more of a unified people. So it's almost like when you see these memes on Instagram about what Black mothers used to do growing up and how we all had the same experience, even though we didn't even know each other growing up. No matter where you lived across the country, now everyone has come up with their own version or their own traditions or their own way of how to handle things. There's no standard way of doing things anymore in our community. So we don't all get up and go to church on Sunday mornings anymore. There was a time when even if your parents didn't go, they sent the kids. You know what I'm saying? These things are like we're all over the place as a people. There's no unity at this point, which means it leaves people to have these other viewpoints. I think a lot of it has to do with us wanting to simulate and be in, the main culture. But I think there's value in it's a beautiful thing to have our own culture.
I couldn't agree with you more. What about the narrative that's coming up about, defend Black women and that this was a defense of Black women? Where do you stand, as a Black woman? Doesn't speak for all Black women, but just as a Black woman existing in society, you're an entrepreneur, you have your own business here in New York City. When you hear that term, Black women are not protected, right? Like, what's your thoughts on that narrative?
Okay, so my thoughts on that narrative is plain and simple. I think if you think that this has to do with protecting Black women, then clearly you may have a comprehension problem. There's some misunderstanding where this has nothing to do with Black women. This had all to do with Will's ego. I don't think at all he was protecting his wife. Okay, and then there's also the thing of like, you can't change the narrative. I don't know if you noticed or not, Mike, but there's this thing where people like use the wrong words all the time for things. Like everybody's just all over the place. And I don't like it because it's like, this is not about Black women. This had nothing to do with him. Like, if you can't see that he's basically butthurt from all of these memes, all of these jokes that people have been saying this whole time about this whole entanglement situation, which I personally feel like if you don't want people to comment on it, don't ever mention it. You were not supposed to bring it up yourself. So I think honestly, he's probably more mad at himself than anyone about how he handled the situation. But what you don't do is turn it into like people are spun it into this narrative about Black women. And again, how do you even know that that's how Black women want to be protected?
What about you as a Black woman? How do you want to be protected? Because I had someone not even slide in, someone wrote in my comments after I came out against what Will Smith did. And she said that she hopes and prays that one day I will find a love like that where somebody would defend me in that manner. How would you want that? Yes. Is that okay? As a Black woman, from your Black woman perspective, again, you don't speak for all Black women, but do you want your man to show that type of aggression when someone says something negative towards you?
So what really appalled me about the whole situation is that Jada didn't jump up behind him to stop him.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very telling to me. So I think that maybe the relationship may be more toxic than what we realize.
So you wouldn't want that for you, wouldn't make you feel protected?
That would make me feel vulnerable. What I see with my husband running on stage at the Oscars is us losing our home, us losing all of our money, all the things that we have worked so hard for over the years. So I'm like, you know what? See how you want to see it, but that's what I saw.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this was stemming from the joke of alopecia, which is a disease that creates hair loss for individuals. You see that, well, one, do you see that a lot with clients coming to you who has what Jada Pinkett Smith and lots of other Americans have here? Do you see that?
Let me just point out that joke was not about alopecia. That joke was about a shaved head.
Ooh.
It was not about alopecia. It's very pretentious of you to assume that we all know what you're going through. Everyone doesn't watch Jada's show. Everyone is not up on the latest of what Jada has going on. So I think it's very presumptuous of her to assume that we all knew that she had alopecia, which, may or may not be the case.
So let's just go a little bit more about that, because that was such a great call out, even for me to hear, that it's not about alopecia, but it was about a shaved head. right? And
Yeah.
that, the presumptionness that I would know, that everyone would assume that it's alopecia, and that everyone is just to assume that everyone watches Jada Pinkett's show. That's very true. Not everyone does, and not everyone even knows what alopecia is. For Black women, hair has always been such a strong identity, right? It's
Yes.
particular now
So
you kind of get into the shaved head thing. So talk to me a little bit about that dynamic, as a hairstylist that sees Black women in that moment, who it may be vulnerable for them to shave their head, or who has alopecia, right? Like,
well, look, I will say this. I would say this. I'm happy that it's such a big issue for Black women, and I primarily work with Black women. So it's an issue for women in general, but I know for Black women especially, the numbers are higher. So I think, I will say this again. I think people took it out of context, but at the same time, I'm happy that the narrative has been open to discuss alopecia. So I'll take it however we can get it. It's unfortunate that it has to come with this scenario, but I'll take it. I think that not enough has been done, not enough research, not enough. And I think when I see people condemning Black women for wearing weaves and wigs and all these things, they have no idea why these women are doing these things. It may not be a vanity issue. It may not be an issue where you want to simulate what other women are doing. It simply could be that you're embarrassed about your hair.
mm.
And it's a huge
Talk to me
issue in my community.
When you have clients who come to you like that. What is that conversation like? Give me a little bit more about that. Like, what is that conversation between you and your client when they think about the embarrassment of their hair?
So initially, before the pandemic, I basically had like a salon space, but I've gotten smaller and smaller, and it's worked out well because a lot of clients have alopecia, a lot of them. So,
Really?
it's something very private that, you don't want even other women to see it, you know?
Hmm.
So it can be very traumatizing for a lot of women. So you don't want to put them in a position where they feel where they don't feel beautiful, or so I try to approach it in a way of how do you want to move forward? Do you want to put, because sometimes depending on like extensions and things like that, it can actually make your hair come out more, or stunt the growth of what you have left. But again, it's like my sister has alopecia. Like I've had issues with myself. My mom has had issues. Like it's a common thing for a lot of Black women.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know it was that prevalent in this comment. What comment? Well, then, can you see why this narrative, why this conversation gotten conflated, right? How whether it's about a shaved head versus about alopecia versus about defending Black women, can you see how all these issues have become conflated?
I think that people don't pay attention to details. And I think that for a lot of people, they just seem to go with like a blanket kind of thing, but they're all separate things to me. I don't think that one, like I said, you deciding to shave your head is not the same as you having, let's say, like alopecia areata. There are different types of alopecia. So some people have like bald spots, or some people have like where it will just fall completely out, versus some people whose hair it just won't grow in full. And you can actually have different types. Traction alopecia. There's different types depending on what's going on with your hair. With your scalp.
Mhm.
But I do think that it's good to kind of understand what it is and know the difference.
Yeah, you were going somewhere, and I thought was very interesting because now you do things in a private space. What has that done for the vulnerability of your client?
Well, it's very helpful. So I would even like take a client on my day off if I know that they have like an issue that they don't want people to see. That way, no one else will be here. It's very important. Your hair is your crown. So it's very important.
What about you said the Crown Act that's happening right now for Black women to wear their hair natural, and to be able to wear their hair that doesn't, be beholden to European standards of beauty. Um, you know, do your clients talk to you about these things when they're in your chair, right? In terms of hairstyles for work, the respectability of hair, the politics of hair.
Well, my clientele is basically professional women. So it runs the gamut. For a lot of people, they didn't have that option. But it also depends on like what level we're talking about, right? So when you get to a certain point, this is what I tell everybody. Go in the way you want to present yourself. And once you get the job, then do what you need to do. You can always switch it up later. You know what I mean? But you have to do what's going to make you feel comfortable. But it's really saddening that we're in 2022 and this is now a thing where they're just acknowledging this.
Yeah. But can you, so question, have your clients talked about this with you this week? And what has the conversation been like in the sense of the politics of the hair, the alopecia, and about feeling unprotected? Or is that, and you can be honest, is that a narrative that just is only big on social media? Because I always say Twitter isn't real, right? Is that a narrative on social media, but not maybe meeting reality? So I'm just curious as some of your clients, what's been their perspective this week coming into you?
So that's the thing. I haven't heard one person mention any of this outside of the actual incident. Like, I think people are kind of like, again, with the alopecia thing, most people don't really talk about it unless they're talking with me personally. And this week hasn't been that kind of week where I've had to deal with it as yet. But I think for most people, the alopecia thing hasn't come up. It's only, I think, been a more of a social media thing, which, like I said, it's good that more information is being put out there. But as far as like my clients are, I haven't had any conversations about it.
That's interesting. So you might be from a place perspective that social media and Twitter isn't real.
I mean, even the whole protect Black women, again, I believe that that's not even like, I don't even understand how people can like connect those dots to mean that, because that's not, that wasn't, when I saw it initially, that wasn't even my takeaway from it. And I thought it was a stretch to even see people thinking that it applied to this scenario, because I didn't connect that at all.
Aside from this scenario, what are your thoughts on that narrative of protect Black women?
I think Black women should be protected, but I also think, see, I think a little differently than a lot of people, and I tend to feel like women bring men into this world. Women tend to allow men to do certain things, and I think, when it comes to like bad habits or how we end up in society, the role that we play in society. I don't understand how we are the givers of life, but at the same time, you got to relinquish your power to someone else. That makes no sense to me. So I think for a lot of women, they just don't understand how powerful they really are. In saying that, I mean, like, if you see your husband running up on stage to slap someone, you're supposed to stop him. You don't let him get to that point. And then I saw a new video where like Jada's laughing afterwards.
Yeah, the laugh.
I didn't understand like any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to remember where our power lies and use that power.
You are really coming from a really interesting perspective that's adding, and I'm happy that of this perspective, because it's advancing the conversation. Because there is a point where the conversation can become stagnant, and we just kind of get stuck in this loop of protect Black women, alopecia, and the conflating of the criminality aspect of assault. Although Chris Rock has said that he's not going to press charges, against it. What you're saying is that the conversation should be advanced on the role that the Black woman played in this space, which is Jada, in terms of not preventing it from occurring. What do you say to these women, or what's your thoughts to these women who are continuously pushing this narrative that this is what they want to see, from their man? Is this a reflection on misplacement and misguided perspective on Black love?
I think for a lot of women, they probably just don't know what they want. You have to, I think most people don't know what they want. So I think that creates the problem where it's like, so how do you protect them if they don't know? It's twofold, right?
I mean, you mentioned something really interesting, that Jada should have been the one as a Black woman to go and tell her husband, to stop the act that he was about to do. We see a lot of women, Black women, particularly like on social media, engaging in the narrative of like, that's what they want to see. That's what they want their man, their partner to do on their behalf. I'm just curious, of why you think that narrative is and why a lot of Black women see that example as true Black love, right? Do we have a misguided thought process on what a healthy Black love relationship looks like?
I don't think so, because I think for your husband to end up in a physical altercation with someone else, that gives me more of a toxic relationship. So I don't know why someone would want to be protected in that way. Now, I'm all for diffusing the situation, but I don't think it has to be brought on by violence. And I think that's what women need to understand. Like, I think for a lot of women, they don't know what they want. I don't see how this connects, but at the same time, like, you need to figure out exactly what you want, because the last thing you want to do is lose your home because your husband lost his temper and now you guys don't have anywhere to live. Because let's be clear, most of us don't have Will Smith and Jada money, right?
Very true.
So when your husband protects you, and now you guys have to move in with your in-laws, then what? What do you want for yourself? There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's other ways to handle a situation, and I don't think that was the right way to handle it. And I would never want someone that I'm with to handle a situation in that way.
Mm-hmm. This is true. This is a really refreshing take on this. I think that there is this narrative out there of what Black love is, and that usually and that kind of goes into masculinity and manhood too as well. Question for you: if Will Smith would not have said anything, what do you think the reaction would have been online and social media?
As far as the joke,
mm-hmm.
It would have just went away.
Mm-hmm.
It would have simply went away.
Yeah.
There have been rumors for years about their relationship, and it always went away. It's only a problem when you address it.
Wow. Porsche, the Hairstylist, Waldo. I cannot thank you enough for this conversation, for coming on the Mike Muse show. It has been very insightful, to hear this, and it's been really insightful too to hear about how many women are suffering in silence from alopecia, and how uncomfortable they are even around women when it comes to being able to address the solution, as well as being uncomfortable to the point where they want to do a private session with you. If nothing else, I'm happy that this conversation has brought on that narrative of hopefully women no longer have to suffer in silence with alopecia. And I hope that this conversation advances to the narrative of identity of your hair, right? And I don't know if that's ever going to go away. I think that's just such a too broad of a narrative to try and solve for. Because that stems from so many things. That's a society. That's what women think men want. That's how women also to compare, to each other. Hair is such an identity politics. Even as a man, my hair, I had issues, as going bald. I didn't want to accept it, didn't want to believe it, didn't want it, didn't want it to happen to me. I was getting my hair cut every week. I used to work on getting my waves and wearing the do-rag and having the Murray's wax, all the things. And so when it began to leave me, it became a part of a loss of my identity. And so I wrestled with that a lot. I think that it's just unfortunate that this slap has now mixed up the narratives in so many ways that we are now talking about. My concern is, and the danger of this is that we are now talking about fundamental issues of Black love. What does Black love look like? Masculinity versus manhood, and also to the politics of hair, on an example that was rooted in an assault. You always want these conversations to go forward, and you always want these conversations to advance. I just hate that the vehicle that this conversation going forward is rooted in an assault. And as you said to your clients, who also is working on who had worked on King Richard, it's taking away from the joy and experience of just that film. right? And just
Yeah.
what those actors should be celebrating and experiencing. That one of them won the Oscar. Their film is getting such hype. Maybe more people will see. These are the point of these award shows. The point of these award shows from the Oscars, and these films, but a lot of Americans haven't seen. So the idea is when they win, you know what I mean? You may go check it out. I may go check out King Richard now, right? So I can hear these stories. I may check out Coda, right? And learn
That's
more,
typically me. I watch
about
the
the hearing
awards and
impairment.
then I watch it. Yeah. I watch the awards and then I go watch the movies.
Yeah, but all this is taken away for it. And so my other concern, Porsche, is that I just don't want young Black men to see this as a reflection and a representation of this is what I'm supposed to do as a man when I am with my woman, right? And then, as you so eloquently mentioned, a lot of them don't have Will Smith and Jada Pinkett's money. And I'm also, too, my concern now going forward is, will young Black women see this as what love is, right? And will they want their young Black men to assault on their behalf? And that if he doesn't, then now he's soft and weak. And doesn't love. Right. And so this is my concern moving forward. And this is why I don't want the narrative of I wish this will all go away, because there's so much damage that has been done that we now need to start having more healthier conversations that actually unpacks what we did, calls it for what it was, an assault, talk about how wrong it is, and then begin to say, this isn't how a young Black man should operate in society because of the criminal justice system. Young Black woman, you shouldn't want or judge a young Black man on his manhood or masculinity or his love for you because he's not slapping someone on your behalf. Right. And so these are all the concerns that I have going forward, and then in the backdrop, we now have discussion of alopecia versus a shaved head. So now all these nuances are coming, but unfortunately, it's just how it's being delivered. But thank you so much for helping us, go through this conversation. And shout out to your clients, man, and all their beauty within and without, even with or without alopecia. We have to start loving on the heads. Yeah. Porsche, congratulations on 15 years of Ebony Studios. You are a true gift, and your creations and the way you do hair is amazing. My mom, as I said before, is a huge fan of yours. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. And again, I never tend to have traditional views, but I think hopefully I can give people something else to think about.
That's the point of this. That's why your viewpoint was amazing. It just adds a new level of it that advance. I'm all about advancing the conversation. Like, how do we keep going forward? And everything you brought in was amazing. I love you, Porsche. Until next time, folks, that is our show. Look forward to talking to you next week. As always, hit me up at I am like Muse, MUS&SAME on Twitter, Instagram for all your thoughts and comments on what I said, but particularly what Porsche said. She said some really interesting things, and I'm kind of here for it. So until next time, folks, peace.